Music Theory Lesson Number 4, Scientific Pitch Notation. Scientific pitch notation, also known as SPN, is a system for identifying notes by letter name and a number. The number corresponds to the note's octave location. An example of this is C4, which is also known as middle C. Other names for this system include American Standard Pitch Notation and International Pitch Notation. So in this system, we will have a note letter name and an octave number. Here we have the note A and the number 3 right here. So this, in scientific pitch notation, is called A3. One octave higher, we have the note A4, and one octave higher than that, we have the note A5. Over here, we have the note C4, which is also middle C. One octave higher than that, we have the note C5. And an octave higher right here is the note C6. It would be a good idea to memorize middle C and to know that that is the note, or rather the scientific pitch notation note C4. Okay, so here is our previous slide right here. I've added the bass clef and these notes right here. This is A0. This also happens to be the lowest note on the piano. One octave higher than this is A1. An octave higher than that is A2, and so forth. We keep going up an octave and we get a higher number. So another way to think about this is that these are ranges. So the two lowest notes on the piano are A0, and then the next white note above that is B0. After that we get C1. And then from C1 to A1, we can think of that as our first section. Actually, my correction, it would go from C1 to C2. We'll see this on the next slide. Again, A0 is the lowest note on the piano. However, this is not the highest note on the piano. It's pretty close, but not quite. And by the way, when we read music, generally we're not going to be reading more than 4 ledger lines, either below the staff, such as right here, or above the staff right here. There's other symbols that will tell us if we see a note and we see that symbol that will play that an octave higher. So you won't have to be reading all these ledger lines. Okay, so here is C1. So this is 2 notes above A0. So we have A0, B0, and then C1. So you can almost think about these first 2 white notes as sort of outliers or oddballs because it's just A0 and B0. Well, there actually is a black note in between that, that's a 0, but think of those as sort of the outlier situation, and then think of starting from the C's to the next C as our sections. So our section 1 would be C1, and all these notes in between will be with the number 1. So the numbers in between, or the notes in between these two would be C1, D1, E1, F1, G1, A1, B1, and then C2. And then we would repeat that pattern to here, to here, all the way up to here. Now this C8, this actually is the highest note on the piano. So this is just 2 notes above A7. So you would have A7, B7, C8. There's just our clarification that C8 is the highest note on the piano. Now here's another way to look at it. And here I have my Alesis Q88 MIDI keyboard. And I have included the scientific pitch notation notes on each key. So here is A0, which is the lowest note on the piano. And here is C8, which is the highest note on the piano. Now here you can easily see that A0 and B0 are the only notes with a 0. And then C1, we start having our pattern here. So that's why I said think of these 2 notes as outliers. So we have our C1, D1, E1, and so forth. Then our next C is C2, D2, E2, and so forth, C3. We repeat that pattern all the way up to C8. Now also, in thinking about accidentals, they will basically be aligned with the white note that it's next to. So for example, this black note right here, which could be thought of as either C sharp 2 or D flat 2. So it's going to have the number 2 either way, whether it's a C sharp or a D flat. Now it might get a little tricky when we think about, let's say, a double sharp. So let's say we had, A0 double sharp. No, let's try that again. Let's say we had B0 double sharp. Now, is it going to be with the letter 1, such as C sharp 1 or D flat 1, or is it going to be a letter 0, the number 0? Think about that for a second. Okay, the answer is it's going to be with the number 0. It's going to be B double sharp 0, which is this note, because it's going to be relating to the letter name of whatever note it starts on. So yes, it's going to be B0 double sharp, not the letter, not the number 1, sorry. I keep confusing those two. Here is middle C. And I just wanted to clarify the situation, showing the visual of how this is roughly in the middle of our piano here, which is why it's called middle C. Not exactly 100% in the middle, but pretty close. And yes, C4. Good to memorize C4 as being middle C. Now I included the keyboard and also the range of white notes starting from A0 to C8. So yes, this note will correspond to this note down here, B0 to this note. Here's C4, middle C. We keep going all the way up to C8, which is this note. And again, you don't have to memorize all these ledger line notes. I would say it'd be safe to memorize up to 3 and 4 ledger lines either above, such as right here, or below the staff. Me personally, that's what I know by heart. After that, I have to actually count the ledger lines to figure out which note I'm playing. But again, this is a rare situation because you're not going to have that many ledger lines. You'll usually have what's called an 8VA or 8VB sign, which tells you to play an octave higher or an octave lower. Yep, there's our middle C right there. Note that this could also be written on the bass clef. If we had one ledger line right here, that would be middle C also.